Hey there, this is John with WesleyGospel.com. To every revival person that believes in revivalism, every preacher, every preacher out there that ever hears me, I just want to say this. I believe that I was actually visited by the spirit of Leonard Ravenhill, and I'm not lying about it at all. You just have to take my word for it. And in my dreams, I really do. I believe I was visited by the spirit of Leonard Ravenhill, or an angel representing him. Either way, about 15 years ago. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, well, first off, what led up to it? In 2006, I was somewhat of a loner, just spending a lot of time in contemplative prayer, just binging on sermonindex.net, listening to literally nothing but Leonard Ravenhill, David Wilkerson, and A.W. Tozer for an entire year. I mean, it was just sanctification. There was no pornography, there was no carnality, there was no bad movies, there's no cussing, there's no bad friends. And I was just seeking the Lord with a pure heart. And I want to say this is 2005, 2006. And a lot of the experiences I had in prayer during that time I eventually formulated into the How to Experience God ebook. And, you either believe my testimony or reject it. Okay? It's not my objective to convince persons to believe my testimonies. But I believe on 2 occasions I was visited by the spirit of Leonard Ravenhill in my dreams. And I don't believe that that's spiritism, and I don't believe that that's necromancy. I believe it's supported by Matthew chapter 13, where Moses appeared to Jesus on Mount Transfiguration. Not in a dream in that case, but still, the concept's there. Take it or leave it. Am I right in that reference? Hold on, let me check. I think I'm wrong in that reference. Okay. It's not Matthew 13. It is Matthew 17. Matthew 17 specifically, it was Matthew 17:3. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Okay. And and that's what the Catholic Church, I believe, uses as a basis for Catholic saints visiting people in visions and dreams. So there's scriptural support for it. Take it or leave it. I believe it still stands today. And I think Wesley has references to that in his journals as well. So, okay. Now, with that being said, I believe that I was actually visited by the spirit of Leonard Ravenhill on 2 occasions. The first occasion was I was in heaven, and I was walking around what I believe to be my future heavenly mansion on the conditional promise that I persevere to the end. And it was white, the walls were white, yeah, there was a lot of furniture in it, but they were covered because they were not ready for use. I go to prepare a place for you, and I stood 10 feet away from Leonard Ravenhill and talked with him face to face, looked at him in the face. He had a copy of Why Revival Tarries that he handed to me, that he signed, and he said, "John, you're called to be a revivalist. You need to read all of Charles Finney's books in the original text." And then I said, "Well, what about all the Parkhurst versions? Kind of modernize them, the Parkhurst versions." And he said, "What? They're not in the original text? Read all of Charles Finney's books in the original text." And then I woke up, and man, there was just power of God on me. Sleep paralysis sort of thing when I woke up. Which is interesting because in one of his videos, he's like, "Oh, I love the Parkhurst versions. I love them." Now it's like he's saying, "All right, wait a moment. This is my heavenly perspective. No to the Parkhurst versions. Go back to the originals. So anyway, so I'm trying to obey that because I believe it was a encounter with the Lord. I mean, through either an angel representing Ravenhill or even Ravenhill himself. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to try to hyper-analyze it. That's not important. I had another dream of Leonard Ravenhill. And I was back in my philosophy and religion classroom at UNC Pembroke, and he was a professor in one of the classes with me and about 3 or 4 other students. And he was teaching, and as we were listening to him, he said, John, I want you to review all of my books. Review them. That means read all of them, study all of them, and then write book reviews of them. Okay. And then one moment I said, why do so many of your books deal with death? Like one of your books was called The Death of Death and the Death of Christ. Actually, that's the name of another book by John Owen, The Death of Death and the Death of Christ, which is a Banner of Truth book. I think Death of Death and the Death of Christ. Let me look this up. I actually quoted that not knowing the book title. Yeah, John Owen had written a book called The Death of Death and the Death of Christ. I didn't even know about that book. But in the dream, it was the title of a book that Leonard Ravenhill had written, right? As if to impress the thought on me. This is why dreams can be mysterious and not necessarily make sense to our carnal minds, because they're actually riddles. And then he said, as if to not answer my question and avert my attention to something else, he said, when you study my books, review them for piety and holiness. That's what he said. And then I got out of the classroom in the dream, still in the dream. I went downstairs and I had a whole bunch of Leonard Ravenhill books in my arms, and with other books of the same category, and I had so many in my arms. I had something like 20 or 30 books in my arms, and I was just like a theology nerd, and I was there were students all around, and I tried to get into my dorm room, but my hands were so full of books that I couldn't open the door properly, and some of the books fell down, and kids stopped and pointed at me and started laughing because I was such a nerd to learn from Leonard Ravenhill. And those are the 2 dreams that really occur to me. There might have been a third. Oh yeah, there was a third. Here comes another one. There was a third one I had. Okay. This was a strange dream. I dreamed that I was a little boy, about 10 years old, riding a big wheel bike down what seemed to be an airport runway or something like that. And off in the distance, I saw thunderstorms or something like this. And then I come into maybe it was the airport facility or some sort of a facility, and Ravenhill is talking to what appears to be either his grandson or somebody like this, and he's teaching the boy about holiness and righteousness, and at times he gets very worked up over it, and the boy is sitting there listening attentively, and then Leonard Ravenhill looks up, kind of smiles at me politely, and that's the end of the dream. And I thought to myself, was this guy for real, or was he just another conference speaker? And but then when he looked up to me, just kind of smiled at me, I remembered, no, he was the real deal. Oh my gosh, I just remembered a 4th dream. Here we go. Here comes dream number 4. Okay. There was another dream I had about him. And in this dream, I'm out in the woods. And there's sunlight coming through the top, and there is a high hill inside of the forest. There's actually this hill, almost like a cliff, inside the forest. And Leonard Ravenhill is up on top of the hill, and he doesn't see me. He believes that he is all by himself in the forest, praying to God in isolation. And his I don't remember exactly what this looked like. I think he was on his knees, but his hands were raised up, and I knew in my spirit that he was doing both intercession and contemplative prayer, kind of alternating. That he was praying for the souls of lost men dying and on their way to hell. And he was also taking moments of listening and focusing on the Lord and just gazing at the Lord for 15 minutes straight. And he was doing both of those things. He was praying for lost sinners on their way to hell, and he was getting still and focusing on the Lord. Those are the 4 dreams. And another thing, and I believe either A, I felt the Holy Spirit so much in that dream, and B, I was angry, confused, and frustrated at what I was looking at, because I was thinking to myself, how can a man pray so much and not get tired? And thirdly, I found incredibly challenged by it. Like, how can I ever bring myself up to that level? And I woke up from it. And those were my 4 Leonard Ravenhill, I would call them revelations. And I just want to say this. This generation saw Leonard Ravenhill for a moment on Sermon Index in the past 20 years. And he's I believe, probably decreased in his popularity, at least online, in the past 20 years. But there was a burst of people 20 years ago that saw what this guy was all about, what he transmitted, what kind of spirituality he had. And I believe that there are 2 kinds of people in today's ministry culture. There are either A, those who approve of Leonard Ravenhill's spirituality, and there are B, those who reject it. There might even be a third category that says, I approve of part of his spirituality but reject the rest. And I believe that Leonard Ravenhill, I'm saying this by revelation, I believe that Leonard Ravenhill was a Samuel to this generation and to the generation before us. So that means the baby boomers and the millennials. I believe that he was a Samuel to this generation, and I believe that there are people who got very close to him, maybe even biological children, and I'm not going to point fingers. There were people that got very close to him that were nothing but sons of Eli, sons of Samuel to him, that did not follow his directions. They mocked him, they criticized him, they rolled their eyes, and they came up with a better philosophy in their point of view. And then there were others who took him seriously, regarded him as a saint, a man of God and a prophet, and took at literally almost everything he said as gospel. Literally. They viewed him as an evangelist and as a gospel preacher, and they believed in their hearts, and they were saved. And furthermore, they went even further than that, and they looked at him as a model to imitate, like Hudson Taylor or something. And what I'm saying is that I want to be in that second category. And what I'm saying is that I don't believe that he's just another guy among the panoply of preachers out there. There's something very, 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 very special about him, and he needs to be paid attention to. He really does. And that's all I have to say, man. It's all I have to say. It's about the content. It's about the content that he was trying to communicate. It's about the teachings. It's not about idolatry of a man. It's about the content. God bless you out there. This is John with WesleyGospel.com.